Hi, thanks for tuning in. This is your tackle tip of the week. I'm Ethan, and we are going to talk about Dropshot this week. This is something that a lot of people don't like. It gets a lot of hate because it's finesse and it's always with small baits typically. But in a pinch, if the bite's tough, everywhere in the country you can throw this and get a bite. I don't care if it's a pond, lake, river, you name it. If the fishing's tough, having a hard time getting the bite, put a drop shot on. Especially like cold winters and hot summers when everything is kind of lethargic, drop shot. All right, let's talk about the first thing, obviously, rod and reel. I'll show you what I got. We're looking at a Powell. I got a Powell Inferno. I run a medium light rod, and the reel's like a 2000 series Daiwa. But that's less important than the line. The line's the most important thing. So you want to run a braided leader, or a braided main line, excuse me. I use either 10 or 15 pound braid. I prefer either Power Pro has a really good one, or the other one I use is Suffix 832, that one. So those are good. As far as leader goes, 100% fluorocarbon, always. You don't want to use mono because mono floats. Drop shot, you want it on the bottom. You want it as vertical as you can get it in your bait up off the bottom as much as you can. So fluorocarbon, as far as pound tests, it depends on what you're doing. Right now I have 12 on, but that's because I was fishing a little bit of cover, some grass and things like that. But we'll get to that. So it's anywhere from like a 6 pound fluoro leader up to 20, depending on what you're doing. So most common, 8, 12. We'll start with the first thing, hooks. So two styles of hooks. There's a nose hook, which hopefully you can kind of see that. It's this is a owner mosquito hook. And the other one I use is a VMC spin shot. And this one actually has a little swivel on there you can kind of see. And the swivel allows it, your line and everything to spin without twisting your line. So I use the spin shot when I'm fishing deep water. When I say deep, I'm talking like 20 feet or deeper. And the reason for that is when you have your bait up the line and your weight on the bottom, as you're reeling it in from deep water, your bait's spinning. So if you're fishing a drop shot deep all day, eventually you're going to have a lot of line twists and it's just going to be no good. You're going to be all frustrated. So the way I avoid that, deep water, spin shot by VMC. And then the other style of hook I use, VMC also makes a spin shot in an EWG, which is extra wide gap. And I use these if I'm wanting to fish weedless. So whether it's stock cables I'm trying to avoid, or grass, or just whatever you want to throw your drop shot in, you can use one of these and Texas rig it essentially, and it'll be weedless. So weights doesn't really matter, but I recommend tungsten. I use angler tungsten. This is a 1/4 ounce weight. It's a cylinder shaped weight, and this one actually has a tie on, and so you actually tie your line directly to it rather than just snap it in like your traditional drop shot weight. I like that because it gives me a little bit more freedom to pop it out of rocks and stuff if I'm snagged without breaking the line, because those other ones will kind of crease your line and it breaks a lot easier. So I prefer to tie them on. And then if I'm not fishing deep water, I'll use just a standard 1/0 or 2/0 EWG. This is angler tungsten. I think this is a 2/0. So yeah, pretty simple. We'll rig it up for you real quick just so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. We're gonna go with weedless one. So I tie a Palomar knot, go through the eye once, back through. So essentially you have 2 lines on each side. You're gonna make an overhand knot, like the first part of tying your shoe. So essentially you're making an overhand knot, but now there's 4 lines. So that created a loop in your line. You want to take that loop, run your hook through the loop, and then that loop comes around the main line again. Whoops. And here you see, get it wet, pull on it, and that's your Palomar knot. So now you got some slack, right? So normally if you're rigging up a Texas rig or whatever, this is where you would cut your tag end. but we're not going to cut the tag end because we're going to use the tag end to put our weight on. Okay, so this is a pretty short. I recommend anywhere from 1 to 3 feet depending on what you're doing. This looks like about a foot or so. So you take your weight. Normally you would just snap it on, but I like to tie it on because it saves you a lot of weights, and if you're buying tungsten, you know it's not cheap. So tie it on. If I could grab it. I just use a regular clinch knot for that, which is like your standard knot. Wrap the tag around the main line 5 to 7 times. Stick it through the loop that you created at the bottom. You probably know how to tie that. Cinch it, and there you go. You can trim the tag off your weight if you want, but now you're left with your weight down below your hook. And here's where it becomes weedless. So you take your worm. This is a Dry Creek wart worm. This is basically a 6-inch worm. It's got a bunch of little warts basically, and a few of them have dimples in it. It holds scent really well, and it's got this little ripple tail to add some action. I'll use these style worms a lot when the water's hot because the fish are a lot more active, and so it gets their attention a little bit better. If it's cold, I'll go with a straight tail, or if I'm just switch it up. This is a Zoom trick worm, both 6-inch, just a little bit different. And then we'll rig it up real quick. So now you're Texas rigging it essentially. So through the eye or through the tip of the worm, out the side about a 1/2 inch or so, depending on how big the gap is on your hook right here. Bring it up, spin it, and then bend your worm, and then Texas rig it. Stick that hook point in. Now you're weedless. So you have this worm. Nothing's gonna get snagged on it, but if the fish bites it, boom, they're done. There's the hook point, you're gonna hook them. So I use this for grass, or if I'm fishing around docks that have a lot of cables, that have like mussels and stuff all over them, they'll slice your line really good. And the small hooks, if they're exposed, they just get snagged on stuff really easy around docks. So this is my setup for that. And then as far as nose hooking goes, you can either use the spin shot or the regular hook, just depending on what depth you're fishing, for me at least. This is the mosquito hook. Here is a Dry Creek Dropshot tube. This is just a little tube designed specifically for Dropshot. Comes in a package like this. This color is called Disco Shad. Great color, works really good. So as far as nose hooking, pretty simple. Take the nose of your bait, take the hook, go through the nose like that. That's your standard nose hook. Pretty easy, pretty straightforward. As soon as they bite it, you're exposed, but as you can see, it's a lot less weedless. So a couple other baits I like to use just to kind of keep them honest. This is a Dry Creek Platypus. This is the smaller size. I believe it's a 3.5 inch. Yep. So 3.5 inch is great, especially for smallies in the river, things like that. And then here's a Dry Creek Ripple Worm, which I don't think that many people use, but they should. It's a great little worm. Works really well when the fish are pressured or if it's really hot. It's just a nice little sample for them to eat, so it works. And then here's the thing I use if I've already caught a lot of fish in one spot and I think there's more fish there and I want to pull more out. I'll put on a different bait just to change the action a little bit and see if I can generate a couple more bites from whatever fish are left over. This is a Strike King Rage Swimmer. This is the 2.75 inch, and I'll nose hook this all day long. Works great. With these, they're really soft, so they like to rip, so I do a little bit different with the nose hook. I'll kind of come in bottom like that, and then I'll go out like that. So a little bit more of the bait is on the hook, or a little bit more of the plastic is on the hook. It kind of keeps it from ripping a little bit better, but just experiment with that. You'll find what works best for you. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I appreciate you guys watching. Stay tuned. I'll try to make more tackle tips every week, and be sure to let me know what you want to see, and I'll try to address that. So awesome. Thanks. Have a great day.